you know what? Goshen belongs to my family anyway. Goshen belongs to Sarah, Abraham's wife. When Sarah died, Abraham inherited Goshen. And when Abraham died, Yitzchak inherited Goshen. And when Yitzchak died, Yaakov inherited Goshen. So the land of Goshen really belongs to Yaakov. I want the Jewish people to live in their own land. Of course, after so many years passed and the Jewish people didn't claim ownership of it, it was forgotten, but Yosef still remembered. And he didn't want Egyptians to accuse the Jews that they're living on Egyptian land, so he wanted the Jewish people to live in their own land. Now we're in verse 21. The sons of Yisrael, children of Yaakov, did so, and Yosef gave them wagons by Paro's word, and he gave them provisions for the journey. And to each brother he gave a change of clothing, because when they heard the news that the stolen object was found in Binyamin's sack, the Torah tells us that they ripped their clothing, they tore their clothing in mourning. And now they have ripped clothing. So Yosef gives them a change, new clothes to wear. But to Binyamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothing. And to his father he sent the following. Now we're on page 257. 10 male donkeys laden with the best of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys laden with grain, bread, and food for his father for the journey. And he sent off his brothers, and they went. And he told them, do not become agitated on the way, meaning don't start blaming each other. It was your fault that we sold Yosef, we should have done this, we should have done that. Just travel quietly, friendly. Don't fight on the way. Now the great moment arrives. Verse 25. They went up from Egypt and came to the land of Canaan, to Yaakov their father. And they told him, saying, Yosef is still alive, and that he is the ruler over the land of Egypt. But Yaakov's heart rejected it, for he could not believe them. He was mourning for Yosef, he was mourning for Shimon. Now, for many days that they were absent, he was mourning for Binyamin. And now all of a sudden they're telling him that was all fake. It was all for nothing. Yosef is alive, Shimon is back, Binyamin is back. Imagine, after thinking that God is harsh with you, that God is testing you, that God took away so many things from you, now you realize that it was all good. And if you stayed loyal and you stayed trusting God all this time, you feel proud. Wow, I knew all along that everything will work out well. Thank you, Hashem. But if you were not so trusting, if you really thought that things are not fair and you complained, then when things work out well, you feel embarrassed. So Yaakov can't believe them. It's very painful to admit a mistake. However, when they related to him all the words that Yosef had spoken to them, they had to repeat the whole conversation. and all the proofs that Yosef brought. And he saw the wagons that Yosef had sent to transport him. All of a sudden, a huge transport of 10 male donkeys and 10 female donkeys laden with all kinds of delicacies and clothing and food. Now he believes them. Then the spirit of their father Yaakov was revived. He received the spirit of prophecy again. He became happy again. And Israel said, "How great! My son Yosef still lives. Not only physically, but I see that he is spiritually still strong and loyal to Hashem. I shall go and see him before I die." Baruch Hashem, a wonderful, good ending to such a difficult period of time. We're now in chapter 46, verse 1. So Yisrael set out with all that he had, and he came to Be'er Sheva. On his way down to Egypt, he stopped by Be'er Sheva. Be'er Sheva is a place where he visited before. That's a place where his father Yitzhak lived. That's a place where his grandfather Avraham lived. There's a long history in Be'er Sheva. And there he slaughtered sacrifices to the God of his father Yitzhak. Now, a good question is being asked. Why all of a sudden Yaakov's name is changed to Yisrael? And the reason is because Yaakov represents the name at the time of struggle, the name at the time of suffering. And Yisrael refers to the name at the time of victory, at the time of being on top of the world. Just now, Yaakov found out that Yosef is alive. Yaakov receives prophecy again. Yaakov is happy again. He's going to reunite with his son Yosef. Yaakov now is on top of the world, and therefore he is referred to as Yisrael. God spoke to Yisrael in night visions, and he said, "Yaakov, Yaakov." And he said, "Here I am." And now all of a sudden we're surprised. Hashem again is calling Yisrael Yaakov twice. Why is that? And now we have the answer. Because Yaakov is about to go into the harsh, long exile in Egypt. So Hashem says, "My dear Yaakov, right now you're happy. Right now you have prophecy. You just brought offerings to Hashem. Everything is perfect in your life. All your children are with you. Hashem is with you. But you should know that soon you are going to be Yaakov again. Very soon the Jewish people will be enslaved. They will be crying. They will be low. It will be difficult for them. Are you ready?" And Yaakov said, "Here I am. Yes, Hashem, I am ready for another test." Yaakov just went through a 22-year test. And as soon as it's finished, Hashem tells him, "Are you ready for another one?" And Hashem appeared to him in the night vision to show him that night time is coming to the Jewish people, chas v'shalom. Now we go to page 259. Hashem reassures Yaakov. And Hashem said, "I am the God of your father. Have no fear of descending to Egypt, even though I'm telling you that Egyptian exile is about to start. I'm telling you that a difficult period for the Jewish people is about to start, but you should not be afraid. For I shall establish you as a great nation there. Because of this test, because of this slavery, because of this suffering in Egypt, I will make you a great nation. You will rise because of the tests that you pass. Not only that, verse 4 says, I shall descend with you to Egypt. Don't worry, I'm not sending you alone. I will come with you. The Shekhinah, divine presence, will accompany the Jewish people in Egypt. And I shall also surely bring you up. And don't worry, your children will come out of Egypt and inherit their land, and I will be with them. I will be with them in exile, and I will be with them when they come out. And Yosef shall place his hand on your eyes. Yosef will live with you until the last day of your sojourn on this earth. And now again he is referred to as Yaakov. Verse 5. So Yaakov arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Yisrael transported Yaakov their father. They are still called sons of Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael. They don't know yet the message that Yaakov received. As well as their young children and wives in the wagons which Paro had sent to transport him. They took their livestock and their wealth, and they came to Egypt. Yaakov and all his offspring with him, his sons and grandsons with him, his daughters and granddaughters, and all his offspring he brought with him to Egypt. Now, who are his granddaughters? We know that Yaakov only has one daughter, and that is Dinah. So, one answer is that he had other daughters as well. They just not mentioned. For example, according to Midrash, every son that was born to Yaakov was born with a twin sister. So actually Yaakov has 12 sons and 12, potentially 13 daughters. And another answer is that by daughters we refer to Yaakov's sons' wives. So daughter-in-laws are called daughters. And his grandsons and his granddaughters. Now, these are the names of the children of Yisrael who were coming to Egypt, Yaakov and his children. And now we will count the 70 descendants of Yaakov, the 70 people who came to Egypt. Reuven's sons, Reuven had 4 sons, together that's 5 people. Shimon had 6 sons, so together that's 7. So 5 plus 7 is 12. Levi had 3 sons, together is 4, and altogether the total number is 16. Yehuda had first 3 sons, 2 of them died, and then he had 2 more sons, twins, so now he has 3 living children. So together with Yehuda it's 4. Now we are up to 20, and we list Yehuda's 2 grandchildren. That's 22. Yisachar has 4 children, together with him it's 5, so total is 27. Zevulun has 3 children, together with him it's 4, so together we are now up to 31, and in addition to Dinah, his daughter. And now we're surprised. All the people, his sons and daughters, numbered 33. We just counted 32. Where's the 33rd person? So the three answers. The 33rd person is either Yaakov himself, because the pasuk says, the verse says, Yaakov and all his offspring with him. So Yaakov and his children, Yaakov is counted as well. And he's counted together with his first wife. And by this time Leah is no longer alive, so she's not counted. But Yaakov is counted plus the 32 descendants of Leah. Together 33. That's answer number one. Answer number two is that the 33rd person is Yocheved, daughter of Levi. She was born as they were entering Egypt. So she's not mentioned here yet because she's a newborn. Maybe she didn't even have a name yet, but she's still counted. And the third answer is that divine presence is counted as the number 33. Because Hashem said to Yaakov, I will go with you. So that's 33. Now we turn to page 261. And we list Zilpah's children. Gad and Asher. Together they number 16 people. And sons of Rachel, Yosef and Binyamin. Yosef had 2 children, Menashe and Ephraim. And Binyamin had 10 children. Altogether 14 people. And now we count children of Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. Dan had 1 son, and Naphtali had 4 children. Altogether it's 7 people. And now we are in verse 26. All the people coming with Yaakov to Egypt, his own descendants, aside from the wives of Yaakov's sons, 66 people in all. 66 people. And who are the 4 remaining people? That's 66 people are coming into Egypt. 3 people are waiting for them in Egypt: Yosef, Menashe, and Ephraim. And the person number 70 is not coming into Egypt. He's, if we say it's Yocheved, she is born in Egypt. She didn't walk to Egypt. She was born as they entered. Or we're counting Yaakov. Together with him, 66 people came, plus 3 of Yosef. That's 70. And according to the third answer, it's Hashem himself. So all together, now we read in verse 27, all the people of Yaakov's household who came to Egypt are 70. Verse 28, Yaakov sent Yehudah ahead of him to Yosef to pray a prayer ahead of him in Goshen. And they arrived in the region of Goshen. Yosef harnessed his chariot and went up to meet Yisrael his father in Goshen. He appeared before him. Yosef fell on his neck, on Yaakov's neck, and he wept on his neck excessively. Yosef is again crying on his father's neck. Doesn't say that Yaakov is crying. And our sages say that Yaakov used this opportunity, this unique opportunity of so much happiness, to express his gratitude and loyalty to Hashem. He was saying, Shema Yisrael. Then Yisrael said to Yosef, now on page 263, now I can die after my having seen your face, because you're still alive. And Yosef is giving instruction to his brothers that when they meet Paro, what should they say? Verse 33. And it shall be, when Paro summons you and says, what is your occupation? Then you are to say, your servants have been cattlemen from our youth till now. We're shepherds, both we and our forefathers. Why? So that you may be able to settle in the region of Goshen, since all shepherds are abhorrent to Egyptians. So Joseph wants the Jewish people to live in Egypt, but he has to convince Paro. And he instructs the brothers what to say to Paro to convince him. And that is, tell him that you're shepherds, that you love to eat sheep. And Egyptians serve sheep, they don't eat sheep. And therefore they will push you to the outskirts of Egypt, to the far away land of Goshen. Now, chapter 47. Paro meets 5 brothers. Verse 2. From the least of his brothers, Joseph took 5 men and presented them to Paro. He chose the shortest, the skinniest, the least beautiful, so that Paro shouldn't be impressed by them and shouldn't enlist them into his service. And Paro said to the brothers, what is your occupation? They answered, your servants are shepherds. And they said, if you please, allow your servants to dwell in the region of Goshen. And Paro answered, he instructed Joseph, let them settle in the region of Goshen. But if you know that they are capable, please appoint them to serve me. Verse 7. Yaakov meets Paro. Joseph brought Yaakov his father and presented him to Paro. And Yaakov blessed Paro. Now on page 265. And Paro asked Yaakov, how many are the days of the years of your life? How many years you lived? And how many of those years are productive days? And Yaakov answered Paro, the days of the years of my sojourns have been 130 years. Few and bad have been the days of the years of my life. I'm really 130 years old. But if you're asking how many of those days I actually enjoyed, there were very few. And they have not reached the lifespans of my forefathers in the days of their sojourns. Number 1, Yaakov lived less than his forefathers. And number 2, humbly he says, my forefathers achieved more than I. Then Yaakov blessed Paro, and he left Paro's presence. And our sages say that because of this blessing, the famine stopped 5 years earlier. Now verse 12. Joseph sustained his father and his brothers and all of his father's household with food according to the children, which means according to the smallest member of the household, meaning he took care of everybody. He did not omit even the tiniest babies. The second explanation is that children often waste food, crumble it, throw it, and Joseph knew that, and he provided the Jewish people with more food than they need, to account for the food that's going to be wasted by children. And that teaches us practical lesson. It's normal for children to waste. It's normal for children to spoil food. It's normal for children to break things. Don't get angry. Plan ahead. That's part of life. That's part of raising children. And you have to accept it. Don't berate your children for things that they're supposed to do. And children are supposed to be children. Okay, now verse 13. We describe how Joseph saves the entire world from famine. There was no bread in all the earth, for the famine was very severe. We're describing what happened during the first 2 years of the famine. Verse 14. Joseph gathered all the money that was to be found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan through the provisions that they were purchasing, because he collected all the grain, and now he was able to sell all that grain to Egypt and other countries. And Joseph brought the money into Paro's palace. And when the money was finished, Yosef in verse 16 said, "Bring your livestock, and I will provide for you in return for your livestock if the money is gone." So they brought their livestock to Yosef, and Yosef gave them bread in return for their horses and flocks of sheep and herds of cattle and for their donkeys. And when that year ended, again they came to Yosef and said, "We don't have money and we don't have cattle, no animals." Verse 19, "Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land?" Now on page 267. "Acquire us and our land for bread, and we with our land will become servants, slaves to Paro. Provide seed so that we may live and not die." So, verse 20, Yosef acquired all the land of Egypt for Paro. Now, Yosef acquired the land, but it doesn't say that he acquired the people, because he didn't want to possess the bodies of Egyptians. Because we know that when people don't have freedom, they don't work well. When everything belongs to the government, including the people, people become lazy. Why should I work for the government? We've seen it in all the communist countries and socialist countries. People don't want to work. Why should I work for the government? And therefore Yosef said, "You're going to be free. Even though the land belongs to the government, but I will still give the land back to you, and you be business owners on your own." How? "As for the nation," verse 21, "he resettled it by cities, from one end of Egypt borders to the other." He wanted them to feel that the land is not theirs. They shouldn't forget and later claim that the land belongs to them. But at the same time, he didn't make them slaves, and we'll see why. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, since the priests had a stipend from Paro, and they lived off their stipend that Paro had given them. Therefore, they didn't have to sell their land. And by the way, this was a very good thing for the Jewish people, because among the Jewish people, they also had a priestly family, the family of the Levites. And in fact, they benefited from this stipend as well. When the Jewish people came to Egypt, the Egyptians asked, "Do you also have a priestly class who will receive a stipend and will not work?" And the Levites were the only ones who said, "Yes, we are ready for that. We're not going to be business people. We're not going to earn a lot. We're going to live modestly, and we will dedicate ourselves to Hashem." And later they benefited from that, because the priestly class was not enslaved, and the entire tribe of Levi remained free and dedicated to Hashem's service. And that's a message for us, that when you dedicate yourself to Hashem's service, you will benefit in the end. You might not earn at the beginning as much as those that dedicate their life to money, but at the end you will come out victorious. Yosef said to the people, "Look, I have acquired you this day with your land for Paro. However, here is the seed for you, sow the land. And when you gather the harvest, you will give 1/5 to Paro, and the other 4 parts shall be yours, as seed for the field and food for yourselves." This is the genius of Yosef, that he's not paying Egyptians for their work minimum wage as in communist countries. Rather, he's making them business owners. The more you work, the more you will earn. Only give 20%, a set tax, both for poor and for rich. 20%. But you are encouraged to work more, because the more you earn, the greater your 80% portion will be. and therefore he guaranteed that the Egyptians will work diligently.